we shut off 15% of the nation's oil supply for a day. So basically, I cut 2 chains that would not keep your bicycle safe in town and turned a valve. So we spent about 5 months in conversations. We are not a group, we're not an organization, we were just people. And I think that was actually really important to what we did because none of us were required to do anything or get along or go along with anything. So each person, anybody who had any problem or question or discomfort with anything was free to bring that up, challenge the others, and either get answers or say, okay, I'm not comfortable with this and I'm going to have to not be part of this or whatever. So it developed over time and we learned a lot about pipelines. I grew up across the street from Shell Oil Refinery in Houston, Texas. 1/4 of the nation's oil refining capacity went through basically my neighborhood. And my granddad helped build that refinery. And we talked to a lot of experts before we took any action on exactly which block valves would be the least dangerous, would have the lowest pressure rates, etc. And yet, we didn't do anything like, spy-worthy. It's all out there, it's all on the internet, and it's all, you can find people to learn what you would need to learn. And part of our action, the industry covered our action more than any other media. So every financial and every business or industry outlet covered this story in a big way. Like some stock prices dropped about 3% the day after we did this. And one of the big criticisms was, these people are, putting locals in danger. Well, number one, if turning off an emergency safety shutoff valve puts people in danger, then we have a whole other problem to talk about. Because we have 2.5 million miles of pipelines in this country, more than any place on earth. And those pipelines are required to have these safety shutoff valves every so often, exactly for that reason. And local firefighters and people trained to be able to get in easily, quickly, and do that. So basically, I cut 2 chains that would not keep your bicycle safe in town and turned a valve. And so we exposed something that the industry has not dealt with to this day, even after 9/11 and Homeland Security of 2001. So I'm not going to say, I could go on and on, but are there other questions?
I just have a simple question. Why didn't I see this in the newspapers and hear it on television? When did it happen?
You must not be investing in pipelines. I'm not recommending that you invest in pipelines, but if you did, you would have heard. The rest of the media largely ignored this. The only people who did cover it were alternative outlets, independent media, DSMOG blog, Inside Climate News, Eco Watch. There are many outlets that did cover this. And if you do a search for shutitdown.today, you'll see our website, and there's a pretty long and growing list of places that covered this, most of them after the action. The first valve turner did go to trial. Ken Ward, who you saw describing his action in front of the courthouse in the video, he was in Washington State, and he did not waive his right to a speedy trial. He wanted to do this and help us get this story out. by being in front of a jury. He faced a jury 2 weeks ago in a 2-day trial. He did not... two things were interesting. One, it was the first time his attorney could remember in 30 years going to a criminal trial where not one piece of evidence was contested. Why would you go to trial if you weren't going to contest something? Number two, it was the first time the judge could remember in 35 years of his judging where people fight continuously to keep their criminal history out of court, that Ken Ward was fighting to introduce his. Because he has been involved in many important acts of civil disobedience which had profound outcomes. And every time he started to tell a story of his own state of mind and why he did this and why he believed civil disobedience was important and necessary, the prosecution would interrupt and object. The prosecution also showed a video which was prepared by Ken to be introduced by the defense. So I mean it when I say I'm asking you to judge me.
So what was
Really
the outcome?
am. The outcome, I forgot to tell you. The outcome after 2 days and 7 hours deliberating and an overnight to sleep on it was a hung jury.
That's a win for the...
That's a win. That's a win. We'll take that. We'll take that. Of 12 random people from Skagit County, which is near the refineries, of 12 random people, not all 12 could unanimously agree, after watching him do it twice on video, that he was guilty, or that he must be convicted guilty of the crime of sabotage or the crime of burglary. And when Ken talked about it, he said, well, you know, you could argue that I didn't take anything. Technically, the charge of burglary does not require you to take anything. But Ken says, when I read the charge for sabotage, word for word, that fit exactly. That's what I did. Yes.
First of all, thank you for being here today.
Yes.
My personal challenge is the fact that I use fossil fuels. They're present in my life, even when I'm bicycling. Probably my tires are made of fossil fuels. What I put on my chain. You know, I take the occasional airline flight. I drive a hybrid, but it still has gasoline in it. So I'm struggling with the hypocritical nature for myself of I'm not off the grid completely. I'm not petroleum free. So how do you recommend we rectify that?
We have to live into the future. We are the generation, we are not just the generation, we are the decade that must live into the future. If we're cutting our emissions 9-10% each year, even if it's 9% of 9% of 9%, 10 years from now, we're going to be virtually living carbon-free, or else. So we are the generation that lives into the future and lives into these solutions. I'm a hypocrite too, and I'm tired of the environmentalist movement saying, oh, well, you know, logically that's a fallacy because, you know, we have to use these products to stop these products or whatever. I am using these products to stop these products all the time. But I don't think that's the solution. I don't think that answers the real nagging question about hypocrisy. Abolitionists faced this same problem, trying to argue against slavery for 100 years. They were criticized as hypocrites because the clothes they were wearing were grown and harvested and made by slaves. So how could you say we must free the slaves, whether you were in the South or the North? That was ultimate hypocrisy. And our economy at the time depended on it. And I believe it's a Unitarian minister in Boston, and I'm trying to remember his name, Fred Small, said our economy is as entangled in fossil fuels now as it was in slavery in the 1850s. And that's absolutely true. In fact, we replaced slaves with machines. And the research has been done that shows that you and I use about 50 slaves worth of labor to get through our day. This is what we mean when we say unsustainable.
My great mentor, Thomas Berry, used to famously say, I drove a car here to tell you how bad cars are.
Yeah.
We're living in an ambivalent age, and systems influence individuals that are part of the systems more than individuals transform the systems. And we are in systems that themselves, economic and political systems, that are themselves out of right relationship to reality. So we're all going to be hypocrites. Let's not keep that from taking action in whatever ways we can.
So if we had been able to convince the tar sands pipeline companies to leave the padlocks on, after we shut those valves, we locked them shut, and then we waited for the sheriffs to arrive. One fellow waited an hour and a half. I only had to wait a half an hour. If the pipeline companies had agreed to leave my padlock on there and shut that valve, we shut off 15% of the nation's oil supply for a day. On October 11th, 2016. That would have satisfied our obligation, yours and mine, to stop stealing from our children for 2016 and part of 2017. Remember, we need to cut our emissions 10% a year, right? Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do on this hypocrisy thing, and I think it's important that we use the questions, whether it's coming from friends who are ambivalent or tortured or staying awake at night, or whether it's coming from trolls on the internet who are trying to shut us down and say that we have no legitimate reason to argue for the freeing of slaves or not poisoning our children. We have to use this as the opportunity to say, yes, we are hypocrites, and it hurts like hell, because I know that all life to come depends on me doing this differently, and you too. It's this secondhand smoke issue, right? I'm not smoking. I can cut my emissions too. My emissions are so tiny. I am destroying my carbon budget for the next several years just to be here today talking with you, right? I'm living very differently now than I was 10 years ago. But it doesn't make any difference. My kids depend on you not smoking, right? Now the good news is I believe we move like a school of fish or a swan. Who's leading the school? You know, the shark comes through, whatever. You've seen it all. You can see it. You're playing the video right now, the undersea camera, right? You see the school, you know, going around. Or maybe you're younger and you're seeing like Finding Nemo and they're making shapes. I don't know. Animated or National Geographic, the fish do this amazing thing to avoid the danger. And yet who's leading that? And this is what I think Michael's talking about when he says there's this ripple effect. That you influence, we each influence each other so profoundly in ways we don't yet begin to understand, certainly in the world of psychology. We are connected like those trees are connected. And we're starting to learn how tree roots are connected and how they share everything. Well, if you introduce a chemical into a grove of trees at any point and you trace it, and this has been done, it becomes part of every tree. These trees are sharing all their nutrients, all their water, everything. It is a community. So there's no such thing as an individual tree. Although, of course, there are individual trees, just like there are individual people. So it's up to you and me to be the ones that introduce this healing chemical into this interaction. So that every family tree on earth is not cut down during my lifetime. I can't live with that. I don't know how we do this. I don't have all the answers to the hypocrisy thing. I'm not carbon free yet. And if anybody should be, I should be. I've been agonizing over this so long, I refuse to blink, I refuse to look away. And it's very painful. It was painful to come here today. It's painful to ride in a gasoline car of any kind, anywhere. I'm seeing myself on concrete river of CO2. And I am the actor. I am the one behind the ignition who ignited the fuel that is burning my children's future. And I look out my windshield and I see this river never stops flowing. The CO2 is always flowing. How do I begin to stop that? But that's what we're here to do. And that, as crazy and impossible as it seems, gives us an incredible perspective, like Michael was talking about, on doing what is right, doing what is necessary, and becoming very, very creative. Yeah.
I too am so grateful both for being here and for sharing your message. I have a question, but I wanted to point out Jessica and William, our friends sitting beside me, who have managed to raise children to the ages of 6 and 8 with never owning a vehicle. They're a great source of inspiration.
Oh yeah. Oh, wait, high five, high five. Awesome, because that's how we're all going to live, right?
Yep.
Or with some kind of vehicle, be it bicycle or otherwise, that is not requiring more fossil fuels.
Yeah. My question was going to be, the collection today was going to go partly to the valve turners. Is there a legal defense fund that you are?
That's where it's going to.
Okay.
I don't want, this is not to be rude, I don't want your oil-soaked dollars anymore. I can't bear them any more than I can take riding in a car. The dollar is pollution. Period, the end. I can't receive it as a mental health counselor unless I get it from somebody who had to sit in a cubicle to give it to me. And chances are in that cubicle they were doing something to forward the empire that is destroying all systems of life. And when I spend that dollar to take care of myself or whatever, I'm giving it to someone who also may or may not have any idea that they're contributing to the demise of life. So dollars are troublesome for me, and I'm doing really well on living on almost none. And it's magical, it's really freeing, it's really liberating, like the truth shall set you free. And again, it's like learning to feed ourselves, not depending so much on these dollars. And I'm not telling you to give away all your money, because I'm not sure who you should give it to, right? If you give away your car, are you going to give it to somebody who's going to drive it 24/7? I don't know if that's a good idea. So if you're giving away all your money, which I do recommend, be very careful about who you give it to, because it's powerful stuff. There's a Cree Indian prophecy. Indigenous wisdom around the world agrees with this. It sounds like Dr. Seuss, but it's not. Only after the last river has been poisoned, only after the last tree has been cut, only after the last fish has been caught, only then will you find money cannot be eaten. Now this was not from an economics textbook. This was from thousand-year-old wisdom. People looking at white people like me, discovering their home, their sacred home, and all their relations, and thinking that that was some kind of money pot that we could just take and spend to become wealthy. So,
Let us thank Michael.
I want to bless you with something. At the end of all our kid meetings, the kids always do this little call and response benediction, and it's so fun, and it means so much to me, and I believe it's got a lot of truth in it. So stay standing. If you can, get out in the aisles or somewhere where you can move, because kids don't like to stand still. So we're going to do a little short, simple call and response, a benediction to a fellow who was called the father of the trees because he planted trees. It's very simple, so you're going to repeat after me, and you can move with me if you can. Be like a tree in pursuit of your cause.
Be like a tree in pursuit of your cause.
Stand firm.
Stand firm.
Grip hard.
Grip hard.
Thrust upward.
Thrust upward.
Bend with the winds of heaven.